Welcome to Just a Peek podcast. I'm Molly.
I'm Derek.
This is the stories edition where we like to share stories back and forth sometimes, and sometimes we like to share stories together that we were both a part of in specific categories. So today's category is the time that we lived above an adult club. And we'll let you fill in that. I'm sure you know what that means, but we're trying to keep it family friendly up in here.
You'll get a lot more context as you listen, so if you haven't filled it in yet, you will.
And just to give a brief background so that you can understand the story a bit more, we were poor college students. You were working a serving job. I was working a close to minimum wage job that didn't have great hours. You had just started serving, so you weren't making like all the crazy tips that people rave about. Also, since you were on a tip salary, it was kind of hard to predict how much we could do for our first apartment. And basically what happened was I was living in the dorms, and you were practically at my place all the time anyways, so it was a really easy decision, even though it was very early on into our relationship that we decided to move in together. It was a pretty easy decision to do so, because one, I was about to get booted out of the dorms, because if you've been to college before, you know that your first year you generally have to live on campus, and then after that they don't really care. And so that time for me was coming up. I was just about to finish my freshman year of college, so I wouldn't have to live in the dorms anymore, and I didn't want to. It was really expensive, and I didn't want to have to pay for that in a loan later. So we decided to move in together, and we had a place set up, and we were gonna basically be crashing with some family that were totally cool with it. They even offered, so it's not like we were imposing. But then it kind of fell through rather quickly, and we felt this pressure to get a place very quickly. And if you've ever lived in a college town, you know, especially for Colorado, which is like a kind of, I feel like, mini California, it's really expensive in the first place for housing, let alone in a college town. It can get very expensive. So it was very expensive. We weren't working very good jobs, and we also had never really planned on paying, I guess, like a full price to live somewhere because we were going to be living with family. So we didn't really know what we could afford because, again, you were tipped and I was very minimal hours. So it was kind of hard for us to know what we could afford and how much does, like, electricity actually cost. How much does heating a place cost? Like, what in the end is going to be our utilities? We didn't know all that, and it seemed very scary. I didn't have any credit, which equals bad credit. You had good credit because you're a psycho that plans ahead of time, unlike everybody else. I'm just kidding. Very good of you to plan in high school, but
I'm in school for accounting.
But we didn't have very good credit, and we were nervous about what we could afford, what we could get into, and we had a very tight time limit. And being a college town, apartments were kind of weird. A lot of them were really big and expected for roommates or like houses basically, because you would move in with like 6 to 10 people, and then rent was really cheap for each person per month, and you all shared the house. And not necessarily for fraternities or sororities, but just like house living was very popular around campus, and we wanted something near campus. And then after that, it was kind of like really high end 1 to 2 bedroom apartments, or really cruddy, like 1 bedroom, very small, cheap apartments that were honestly kind of unsafe to live in, it felt like. So
400 to 500 square feet, and like way too cheap even for that, and just dingy and just very scary.
And buggy, and like, there were some ones that we went to that were scary. Which I guess...
Rugs on the carpet that didn't make any sense why they were there, because there was no other furnishings or decorations in the entire empty apartment except for a rug on the floor.
And they wouldn't let you move it or look under it. Like if you went... Like I remember one time, we looked at one place that had this random rug, and I went to go look at it, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah, that's actually comes with the apartment, isn't it pretty?" And I was like, "Yeah, do you mind if I lift it up?" And he was like, "Oh, you don't want to get your hands dirty. Come on, let's go to this room." And at first I was just kind of like, what? And then obviously we didn't go to that place. So it was just kind of like sketch on crud. And so we didn't really know what to do. And again, we felt very pressured. And as I said before, in a college town, there's also weird times that leases are up. And generally, since people are kind of coming for like the school year and then leaving for summer, leases generally are started around August and ended around August. So this being June that we were looking for a place, we didn't have until August to get into a place. So it just made our timeline even crazier because it's not during the summer in a college town, people have already pinned down their place because they're planning on being there in a couple months for school. So generally, if you're looking at an apartment in the summer, you're kind of late already.
The big, like, seasons already happened. Like, the people that signed, like, the 9-month ones that left right after they graduated, like, those have already been filled. And you're not quite in, like, the next season yet.
Exactly. And a lot of people also sign, like, in May, stay for the summer, and then, like, start school up and end in May because they're graduating and stuff like that. So just, anyways, we missed the hot spot for apartment hunting. So we were already dealing with slim pickings, and things weren't looking great, and we didn't know what our price range could be, and we didn't want to, like, accidentally get kicked out and then screw ourselves over, and we didn't know how we'd get approved because I didn't have any credit, if we would even have enough money to get approved, and it was just crazy. So we went on Craigslist, and that was a little sketch.
Because, you know, you can... It's like the classic, a picture can tell 1,000 lies. Somebody can show you something, you're like, yeah, that looks really nice. You can get in there and you like are like, ew, I don't even want to stand on this floor with my shoes on, and you made this look great online.
Did we see a lot of apartments before we picked and settled down? I feel like we saw a lot of the expensive ones that were kind of like a dream. Like we were hoping we could afford that, but in the end we knew we couldn't.
Or the ones that were like, hey, there's 3 of you that showed up to this time slot, and yeah, it's basically whoever says you want it first gets it, because there's only one.
Yeah, I remember that. We went to one showing, which is, I don't know if this is normal practice. I feel like this is kind of like a rude practice. We showed up to this one, though, and they had another couple. And I thought it was so odd, because you usually don't want to, like, create that, like, competitiveness or anything. And it was really awkward listening to the other couples, you know, opinions about things and nitpicking things, and they were kind of like trying to whisper to keep like their opinions quiet and stuff, so we couldn't tell. And it was weird. And then that place also, do you remember the kitchen and the bathroom were carpeted?
Which is like disgusting.
So gross. So that was
it wasn't a nice place. It's not like they were like bidding on these people that make all this money and, oh, we're gonna get such reliable good people in here. It was like a crap hole, basically. So it was just kind of hilarious that they were doing that.
Yeah, like it seemed like they intentionally double scheduled to make sure that there were 2 people to create a competition for a place that was not very good. And yeah, and it was like in the basement of the building, so like the windows, you had like a little tiny window. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was like a slit, and they're like, you know, 5 feet up on the wall, and they're like tiny little windows.
Yeah, kind of like a window that you like would put in a bathroom, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that was like, the whole house was like that, and it was so dark, and everything was carpet. And and that one had specifically a very, very old stove. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, that
and
stove
tiny drawers. The drawers were so tiny, you could fit like 3 spoons.
Well, remember they showed us a
them.
2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom. The 1-bedroom had like one of those tiny little like half stoves. It's like only 2 little tiny burners, and it looked like it was from like the 50s.
Yeah, it was weird. Anyways, so this is kind of what we're up against. So then when we were looking at, well, actually you found it.
Yeah, and it was another one of those picture tells 1,000 lies.
No.
I mean,
I don't think so.
They showed the big bay windows and
But it had big bay windows.
It did have big bay windows, but like they didn't
show
show the overall look. Yeah, and they showed the redone kitchen, which when you get in there and look up close, like was not actually done that well.
No, but that's the thing is, a lot of the places we described, the drawers are really tiny, really old appliances, if any at all. Some of them like didn't have a fridge, and it was crazy. So when you saw this one, you got a little excited because the square feet was huge compared to everything else. And that's the other thing. A lot of the things in our price range were very small.
Like 400 or 500 square feet.
And you do a lot of music stuff, and I do a lot of arts and crafts stuff, so very small wasn't going to cut it. Because then, like, you couldn't have your drums out, and I couldn't, paint very easily, and it was going to be a struggle. So I remember that this place, when you saw it, you, like, first came up to me, and you were like, oh, just to let you know, like, I remember you were a little timid to show me it, and at first I was like, you're kidding, right? And you showed me the pictures, and I was like, I don't know, like, it's the nicest thing we've seen, it's big, and for the price, it doesn't look bad, and, like, we could put up with that. If it's nice, like, how bad could it be?
Nice big sink, new stove.
Well, and thing I was trying to get at is all the kitchens were bad, and this one had like nice countertops, a nice new stove, like you said, nice cabinets.
The bathroom had all been like tiled.
The bathroom, yeah, had been redone. It wasn't carpet.
Mm.
And stuff, and the rest of it in pictures were just kind of white walls, wood floors, and bay windows. And when I got very excited about the bay windows because I always wanted to have a bunch of plants, and the place looked really bright, and that's awesome in a place like that. And so we decided to look, and again, this is the place that we ended up moving into, so we were fully aware it was an adult club.
Yeah, our first interaction with the owner was him telling us its history and how it was like 100 and something years old, and how it serviced people through World War I and World War II, and
yeah, and that I guess this building has always been used for these services.
Let's just say the adult beverage dispensary, however, yeah, you get what I'm saying, is downstairs, and then the adult services used to be upstairs where, our apartment ended up being.
Yeah, so it was kind of set up weird because it was, the upstairs actually was 2 apartments, but it was supposed to be one open floor plan. And if you look at it, it's one large hallway with 6 rooms coming off of it. And those rooms ended up being kitchens and bedrooms and living rooms for these 2 apartments, and they put a wall down the center of the hallway. So you can imagine that basically it was a hallway with rooms off of it designed for servicing. We didn't really think about that until obviously the landlord pretty much told us that's what it was used for, and that this is pretty much what it's always been used for, and that's why they can't... wasn't he trying to explain that that's why they can't tear it down? Is because of historical whatever? Or was he just trying to tell us that?
I don't think that had any merit to anything.
Okay.
I'm sure if somebody wanted to level that building, they'd get it leveled.
Yeah. So we went, we saw it. It smelled so much of smoke when we first got in there. And actually our landlord was smoking and just kind of ashing on the floor when he was showing us the place.
Yeah.
So many red flags, and we just didn't see any of them.
The unfinished wooden floor that had only been stained, which... very, very big fire issue there, and then not to mention he's ashing his cigarette on it on top of it.
Yeah, it was, bad.
Tiles popping off the floor.
Okay,
tiles?
calm down.
No,
we'll get there.
I'm getting
we'll
ahead.
Get there.
We'll get there.
So, we look through it, and, it's like the pictures say. There's a nice kitchen that was redone, and a nice bathroom that was redone, and the rest of the rooms are basically, 4 walls, some wood floor, and a window, or several windows. And the place was huge compared to what we looked at. We were very excited, and they had windows, unlike that other place, and it didn't look half bad. And walking around it seemed fine, and obviously, as you guys can imagine, we were there during the daytime, and I kind of feel like, because I don't remember hearing music the first time we went there, so I kind of wonder if he had it turned off.
I don't remember ever hearing music until we, lived there. Or, it was ours at that point.
Yeah, every time we went to go see it with his permission, we didn't hear music. Which, he did tell us, it's not like he didn't, but he told us that, you can sleep right through it, but his wife hates it, and she can't sleep, but she's very sensitive, so you'll get used to it. And he said you'll get so used to it that when it actually clicks off at 2 a.m., you'll wake up.
Because you'll be like, oh, it's quiet now.
And it'll freak you out a little bit.
It'd be the same thing as if, we came in the most of your bedrooms at night and clicked on your stereo at full blast, except, the opposite of that.
Yeah. And then he started telling us, stuff that we could and couldn't do. So one thing was, he said that we could smoke in it, obviously. That was very evident.
Yeah,
and
that
we assured
would
him,
not have been a problem. We're not smokers, though, so...
Yeah, we assured him that wasn't going to happen.
It wasn't a plus to us.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is I feel like this place, for a certain type of person, could have been perfect.
Mm.
But for us, we don't partake in those activities, and we also weren't 21 yet. So, we couldn't enjoy that we lived above a bar.
Yeah, it was
plus adult club.
Who cared? Yeah.
And so we couldn't, just enjoy that, oh, yeah, there's a bar downstairs. Let's go have a few drinks. That wasn't a perk to us. But, to somebody else, it probably could have been a really big perk at that. I mean, adult club plus bar, plus smoke in the house, plus there was a adult leaf supplying shop.
We live in Colorado, so the adult Colorado thing.
Recreational activity.
Yeah.
Was next door. And so, for some people, that would be a trifecta. Not just everything.
Everything they were looking for, right there. Boom.
Yeah. Plus, it was only 5 minutes from the school? From the college?
Yeah. No, I literally turned off from the street right in front of our house and drove half a mile down the road, turned left, and I was at classes, ready to go. So,
I feel like to the average college student, it would have been perfect. But, for us, we don't do a lot of those things. Not saying, now that we're 21 and stuff like that, things are different. But a lot of that was a perks.
I think even now that we're 21, that really wouldn't change a lot of those.
Yeah, that's true.
Those perks for us.
Yeah, I feel like to be stereotypical, I guess, 2 college men living there would have loved that place.
Mm.
And I think some girls, too. I feel like a certain college couple that I can think of would have loved it. Anyways, so he also told us then at that point, that the washer and dryer hookup that we were seeing in the pictures weren't actually working.
Yeah, that the guy that had lived there before us had flooded the bar because the pipe wasn't draining right and had to, shut down the bar for a bit because it was absolutely just filled with water.
And you'll hear us reference the guy before us a lot. He had lived there, I forget how long.
Really long time.
20 plus years?
Ah.
Might have been even more. I don't remember the exact number, but I remember when we first got there, he told us, this place could be a place for you guys for a long time. This guy up here next to you, your basically next door neighbor, has lived here for 3 or 4 now, and downstairs, switching names, obviously. Holly has lived here for, at that time, 11 years or something crazy.
Long time.
And so, and he's I've had other people live with me for 30 plus years.
One of them had a kid that was 23 that basically grew up there.
Holly.
Yeah. All of his memories were there, pretty much.
Yeah. So, I feel like he kind of counted on us for that we were going to stay there for a really long time. And after hearing that, we were wow, people stay here that long? Wow, this must not be too bad. Again, for certain people. So, the guy before us had lived there for a very long time and kind of did whatever he wanted. He never asked Earl, which was our landlord, if he really cared about, hey, can I put these bay windows in? He just put them in. Hey, can I redo the entire kitchen? He just did it. He didn't ever ask Earl about any of it. And I don't know the guy who lived before, what his name was before he lived there. The guy who lived there before us, I don't know his name, but he kind of just did whatever he wanted to. And some of it is why we ended up buying the apartment, or renting the apartment, was because of the big bay windows, the nice kitchen, the nice bathroom. And we were interested also because there was a washer-dryer hookup, which ended up being a ruse.
It's it was included in the pictures. You could see it in the ad that there was washer-dryer hookups.
Yeah. And the ad wasn't well written, so it's not it wasn't in the description, so we shouldn't count on it. We didn't know any better. Either way, he informed us of that. He talked to us about how loud the music would get. And stuff.
He said what was it, dull roar or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. He said it probably wouldn't bother you, and that, the music does get louder as the night goes on, so be prepared for that. And we thought we were, because we had, at the beginning, stopped by. After we checked the apartment the first time, that same day, we went back at nighttime, and it was 10 o'clock at night, I think. We checked it out again, and we were oh, actually, it's not too bad from outside, which is different. And these are thick plaster walls that they're coming through. That's the other thing, because it's never been restored, so they're still plaster walls and everything. And so we didn't hear much, and so we were wow, yeah, it can't get too bad. That would prove wrong later on. We'll get there.
Because the thing that's great, the plaster might have insulated the sound from getting outside, but the plaster also kept the sound bouncing around and reverberating inside,
well,
too.
And just because it was thick plaster walls on the outside doesn't mean that, the floor was
did anything that really didn't any noise whatsoever.
Yeah. And then, we also had to looked at our contract, and, it was really great. Lease, flat rate, obviously. Rent was flat rate. And also utilities were a flat rate because obviously the building being so old, not everybody was on a different meter, so there was no way to tell. So it was just a flat rate. But he did tell us that, if it went up all of a sudden, that, we might get charged a little bit more. And he told us that there was no heat or AC, but he could get heat in there. And he had a heater in there, but the guy before him just got rid of it.
Sold it. He literally took it out and sold it. Like, it hooked up to natural gas and vented out the side of the building, and the guy just uninstalled it.
I just remembered another thing. When we went in there were a bunch of hooks all through the ceiling. And then there was that timer box, remember?
Mm.
And the timer box were for grow lights.
Yeah.
And the hooks were for the lights. And I forgot about that.
And that's the reason why. I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit more in a minute. The bedroom, I'm pretty sure that if the bedroom was locked down, it was sealed well enough that the police would not have probable cause to go in there to search for anything.
Because it had the bedroom. Wasn't the bedroom the only one that had, like, one of the locks where you could put a padlock through it?
Yeah, it's like the little piece of metal that flips over the like, circle, and you could put a padlock through the circle to keep the door closed. So
the bedroom had that on it. It had the little timer thing, and it had a bunch of hooks on the ceiling that were about the length apart of a grow light. And I'm sure you can guess what he was growing, if it wasn't very obvious. And I remember another weird little quirk once we had moved in, so kind of skipping ahead here, is that he had the peephole in the door didn't work.
Yeah, you couldn't see through it.
So we were kind of concerned because we definitely wanted to make sure that I could look through it. So in case we got a weird knock at the door, since it was a sketch place, we would know who it was.
And the front door, not anywhere in the bedroom.
Yeah, sorry. Just skipping ahead a little bit to kind of paint the scene of why you can make some assumptions about the person who lived here before. And so we had thought it was broken, like the glass got shattered or something. So we had basically taken it out and gotten a new one and realized that the guy had actually stuffed things inside of it so that you couldn't see through it. In an attempt, we assume, to make sure that, like, a reverse cam that, like, cops can use to look through your little peephole to see, like, what's going on in the house. Like, used for when they're pretty positive somebody's doing something. They don't just use it willy-nilly. But they can use those to kind of vet a house before they go into it. It seemed like he was trying to prevent that from happening. So there was just a lot of things in the house that kind of made him seem like a paranoid, leaf-using and growing person.
Before it was, like, legal to do that here.
Yeah, before it was legal to do that here, because obviously he lived there for a very long time. And that kind of explains, like, why he sold the heater. And some of his weird, erratic behavior. And we believe a lot of the repairs and, like, how the kitchen and bathroom were redone were because of him, because he probably just, smoked a little bit and then basically went and just started tiling. And it would explain, later we'll explain a little bit more about that, why some of the stuff was so messed up.
So just poorly executed.
And then remember we walked into the closet of the bedroom, which is a joke. It was, you could fit two people standing in there and it'd be uncomfortable.
Yeah, 2 feet deep by like
3 feet?
3.5 feet wide or something.
Yeah, very small. And then were there like hooks and stuff in there?
Oh,
like
there's all
shelves?
kinds of weird stuff in there. And the shelves were very, not put together very well. Like, I wouldn't trust more than a couple pounds worth of stuff on any of the shelves.
And then there was a weird just piece of carpet in the closet that wasn't anywhere else.
Yeah, it looked like, with how it was there, that carpet used to be everywhere, and now it wasn't. And that's
that
the
would
only spot they
explain
didn't rip it up.
Why the wood was unfinished, because it wasn't really supposed to be uncovered. And I think that the guy previously that lived before us is the one that removed all the carpet, and it was disgusting, so, like, I don't blame him. And I don't know if that carpet had ever been changed since, the opening of the club. Or of the building. Whatever it was when it, because it used to probably be a house of services of sorts. So I don't know if the carpet was ever changed. And then the closet also had one of those padlock things on it. And And that was really the only door that shut properly, which you don't really notice when you go through a walkthrough of an apartment, that whether the door shuts well or not. And so that
Normally you don't even close the doors to anything. Normally
Yeah.
it's all open and you just kind of walk through.
And so that was the only door that really shut well enough, and obviously had the padlock on it, and it also smelled very strongly of the adult leaves we were talking about earlier. If you guys,
Any of you that have smelled those, you know exactly the smell we're talking about.
and it was strong the entire time we lived there. It never dissipated.
Never. Yeah.
And we tried sprays and stuff, and we didn't care too much because we didn't really use it. What did we use as a closet in the end? Oh, we bought
a wardrobe from IKEA.
Yeah.
That we still have.
And put it up because, like, again, we didn't trust to hang anything in there. And also it was so small, I didn't think we were going to be able to hang our clothes, all of our clothes in there anyways. So we didn't really care because we just kind of put excess stuff in there that, like, wouldn't
Like
really
your
absorb.
bike and, like, tools that, like, tools don't care if they're sitting there in a room that smells like that or...
Yeah. So that was that. And that's pretty much all we gathered from the first walkthrough. It was kind of hard to look. And then we also, the guy had basically in the kitchen, all it was like a strip of counters. Or so it was on one small wall. It was like the stove, or was it straight to the sink? Was there one small counter? It was straight to the sink. The stove.
It was stove
the
and
sink,
like an inch of counter, like just enough to like line the very outside of the sink.
the sink, and then a little tiny bit of, or another countertop. One section of countertop plus cabinet, right? So you got stove, sink with, underneath cabinet, and then one more countertop cabinet. And above, you had cabinets across, but only 3 of them.
And no, like it's very standard to do like a built-in microwave above the stove. Like, no, that was just a cupboard. That wasn't a microwave up there.
Yeah, and then that was it for the countertops that the place actually came with. And then the guy that lived before us had put up, I don't know what they're actually called, but they're like little things that you basically, it's like just a countertop, and then it has these
Like
metal
right
brackets.
angle like brackets just to hang it on the wall.
And that was it. So it didn't have like any legs or anything, and then it just went onto the wall. And it stayed there. And so the other guy had 2 of those. So an extra 2 places of countertop, and that was it. And the kitchen was very tiny compared to everything else. And then the bathroom was just your standard like little sink, no cabinet or anything, which if you get an apartment and it doesn't have countertops in the bathroom, reconsider. You don't realize how much stuff you put on a countertop in the bathroom. And, like, that's the thing, is the bathroom was literally like sink, toilet, shower. And it was so close together and small. Like, honestly, it probably shouldn't have even had the shower in it. That's how small that place was. And you couldn't, like, fully open the door if somebody else was standing in there. You couldn't, like, do anything. It was impossible for me to get ready while you took a shower for us to both go to school. And it was just crazy. And yeah, so again, like, the bathroom had no countertops, so if I, like, wanted to do my makeup, I had to go into the bedroom, which we thankfully put up, like, a little area that I could basically have, like, a little vanity to do my, like, makeup and stuff in. Yeah, and then, like I said earlier, as you guys imagined, the 6 rooms with a big hallway down the middle ended up getting a big wall that ended up splitting it into one apartment and then the other apartment. So what our apartment looked like ended up being, when you walked in the front door, very small kitchen, and right next, like right there, when you walk in, you turn to the left, there's kitchen, turn to the right, bathroom.
Like literally the front door, when it opened fully, covered part of the doorway to go into the bathroom.
Most of the doorway to go bathroom.
Yeah.
And then what you would do is walk into the area, the kitchen, go to your very small walk, go to your right, there's a little bit of a hallway-ish kind of thing. There were some more cabinets there, one of those little countertop things.
That's also where the washer-dryer hookup was.
And upper cabinets, not lower. Washer-dryer hookup, and then you immediately turn completely 90-degree angle left, and there was a long hallway. And that long hallway, you walked a little bit, boom, bedroom door. Then you walked all the way down to the hallway, and it opened it up into a really fairly large living room.
Yeah, most of the space was in the living room.
Which sucked, because we, like, didn't spend any time in there, it felt like.
Yeah.
So anyways, so paint a picture for you guys, and I don't know if I finished my thought on the AC thing, but we were told by Earl that we could, if we did the AC, to let him know, and if he saw a sudden increase in the electrical charges, that we would be billed extra. And again, poor college students, we're tight on a budget, don't know what we can spend. So we decided to get a swamp cooler instead. Those things don't work.
And
Very
not
well.
like a good swamp cooler, like a little, it's supposed to sit in a room by itself and be like a little unit, not cool like your entire apartment.
Yeah, but that's all we could afford, and we figured it'd be cheaper. We heard that it's like not as much electrical energy as AC, so we figured we wouldn't get upcharged for that. It didn't work very well, but whatever. And then the last thing about this,
It
you know,
didn't do anything.
yeah, the last thing about this is when we actually sat down to look at the lease, we signed it in the bar/adult club area. And that was just an interesting experience. And we did pay attention to one part of the contract, said that at any point in time, you can give 30-day notice, either the landlord or the tenant, and get out of the lease in 30 days.
Actually, it was... I looked at it better later and realized it was literally a month-to-month contract. It wasn't ever written to be a like full year's worth like lease. It was written, it literally said month-to-month contract on the top of it.
Well, no, I remember when we signed it, it was that, and I asked him about it. He's like, no, this is a full year, and he basically stole a contract from online and printed it off.
And he wrote like leasing for 1 year, but like the language was still in there. You can cancel for within 30 days, which I'm sorry, but we signed it and it was in there. So
yeah, and there were other things in there, and like you couldn't be dominating of the bar just because you lived above and stuff like that. Anyways, so that was that. Oh, the other thing to mention, just, you know, that we noticed on the first look through is you park in a dirt lot, obviously. Why would it have gravel? And everybody got 2 parking spaces. And I will say, the neighbors, you kind of knew who was going to park where. So, like, we always ended up, when it was the daytime, getting to park our cars in the same place every time.
everyone had like their little
areas
section, which made sense because it was right outside of like their units. Like, you know, the one down the way isn't going to come park like right in front of ours. It doesn't make any sense when they have, you know, space right in front of theirs.
Yeah, so then, you know, basically it was like the adult club, a patch of dirt area that was our parking lot, and then the leaf dispensary area. And then try to keep it family friendly. And then on the side of the building is where our entrance was, which was up a staircase of rickety old wood. And honestly, I will say for that, he did say he was going to fix that. And that it was going to get fixed. And it was the scariest thing to walk on. When you would walk, it creaked and it moved. And so after a while, I realized we'd walk up it so much that when we ended up going back to my parents' house and I went up their stairs, I realized I was like walking a certain way because I was used to it swaying back and forth on you, and if you didn't step correctly, I was scared I was going to fall. You got on
solid stairs, and you're like, wow, this is so different.
Yeah, and it was scary, and I can't believe the things we moved up those stairs.
Yeah, no, within our first, like, week of being there, the fridge that was supplied was awful, and Molly's parents were nice enough to give us one.
Well, and that fridge, it didn't even have shelves in it, remember? There was no shelves in the fridge, so like what was I supposed to do? Make a giant stack of my food? I think
the only thing that was in there is like one vegetable drawer in the bottom.
And an old plate.
Yeah.
I still have that stupid old plate.
Yeah, that's wrapped up somewhere. We have no idea what this plate's from. Doesn't match anything else we have. It's not in our cabinet with our regular food. We did not ever eat off from it, but I still have it somewhere.
I think because I was like, I could use it for some craft thing. You know, don't go buy $1 plate at the dollar store. But... yeah, so
we moved a fridge not only down, but also one back up this rickety staircase.
Well, and we
left it there. We did not take that back with us.
We told Earl that we were going to replace the fridge, so he just told us to put the fridge out back, which I guess the adult club had like a very large dirt section again that was just chain link fenced off, and they put a bunch of random stuff out there, and he just had us put the fridge outside.
Like,
got snowed on, got rained on.
And he acted like, almost like if we took our fridge back, he would just haul it back up the stairs for the next people.
Yeah. Which we ended up leaving our fridge because it was disgusting by the end of that. I didn't realize how gross that place was, and that you can't really clean out years and years of servicing out of a place. Like, the walls were sad.
And I mean, fridges suck in air, and, you know, it was just...
yeah.
It wasn't worth it. And the place we moved to had a fridge. We wouldn't have had anywhere to store it. It was not worth it.
Yeah, and my parents knew, and we even asked them, they were like, yeah, no, totally. And they got it for, you know, $50, $75 off Craigslist anyways. And that my mom made cakes, and, like, she used to have a cake business, so she would use that to, like, crumb coat and then chill her cakes in and like just store the cakes and whatever. So it wasn't a big deal because she didn't do that business anymore and they were looking to move, so they didn't want it. And then, so we signed the contract and then we packed up all of our stuff out of your parents' house, moved in. Your parents helped us out a little bit. My parents came down and moved some more of my stuff because I still had like my dorm stuff, which if you've ever lived in a dorm isn't very much. You have some clothes and you have some things that you like really like and like your laptop and bathroom stuff, but you don't have like all of your stuff. So my parents like gave us like old couch that they had, and they brought like other like my like dressers, and they brought other
big
little
office desk, and
yeah, they brought other little odds and ends and like other things that I would need on a more regular basis because I wasn't going to be going home like for breaks or over summer and stuff like that because it's going to be my permanent living situation for a year. And so helped us move in and stuff like that. And that, again, was an interesting move because we brought scary stuff up the stairs of death. And
things that like really should not have been on those stairs.
And then brought them back down when we moved out.
Yeah. Moving out was the most like, these stairs only have to hold up as far as I'm concerned until the end of today, and then they can do whatever they want.
Yeah. It was scary. But so we signed the lease, we got in, and our first night was interesting. I remember the first night that we actually slept there, the music, because if I remember correctly, the first night we actually slept there ended up being a weekend, because we had started moving Friday and we ended up moving almost everything by Sunday. So, yeah. Or Saturday, was it? Or Sunday? No, that's right. So Sunday, we ended up finishing everything. So our first night was actually peaceful. Our second night, which was Monday, which we didn't think much of it, it's Monday. What were they going to do?
Yeah.
We, went to bed and we started hearing the music and it was like a light roar. And we were all like, yeah, light roar. This is fine. And that's all we thought of it, and we didn't think much of it. And then it got louder and louder and louder. And
it's one of those almost like, do you know when you go to a concert and they're playing like the music ahead of time before there's any band on the stage? They just play like the background stuff while people are like filling in and getting their seats and stuff, and then the band comes on and it is like significantly louder than the music they were playing at the beginning. That's kind of what it seemed like. It seemed like, hey, we're open, we're building up for, the shows later tonight, and now the shows have started, and wow, we really cranked it up.
And it didn't seem to matter how many cars were outside.
No.
It was like at, around 7 to 8 p.m. it turned on. It got a little bit louder at 10. It got a little bit louder at midnight. No, it was full blast by midnight.
Yeah.
And then it got shut off at 2.
2-ish.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is sometimes it didn't get shut off until almost 3 because if they were cleaning, they would blast even louder, like more metal music instead of like, I'm sure you can imagine the kind of music that would be in an adult club. Yeah, like very, popish stuff. And so then sometimes they'd blast like metal or rap at the end of the night while they were cleaning, which was fine, I understand, but it just got progressively louder. And so we kind of realized what we were in for. But at that point, I think we were kind of just trying to be... I think we were a little desperate to make it work because we didn't really have other options.
Yeah, we had nothing else to do.
And school was starting soon at that point?
Yeah, we were just kind of making a list of, man, these are all the things we got to get fixed and dealt with before school started.
And I remembered before we moved in, just if you're wondering, we cleaned the crap out of that place. Don't worry. I even went so far as I washed the walls, which actually helped significantly
single wall.
Which actually helped significantly with the smoke smell. And I washed all the walls. You didn't help at all.
I definitely helped you with
the walls. Washing the walls?
Yeah, especially in the living room.
In the top and stuff. Oh yeah, the living room was huge. So we washed all the walls, which I couldn't believe what came off of that.
Yeah, the water when you were done with that, I
had to dump it out several times through the process.
I couldn't believe that all that came off from the walls.
Anyway, so we washed all the walls, cleaned... That one point, I cleaned the floors because I was like, we're going to move in. I know they're unfinished, but these are disgusting. That was also a really disgusting thing to do.
I'm pretty sure you probably could have cleaned the floors 6, 7, 8 times and still been turning the water some nasty colors.
Yeah. We also... Then we moved stuff in, and then we started fixing up little areas. So, one of the things is one of those countertop things that we were explaining that were just kind of, poking out of the wall in random places. We moved one of them, right?
Yeah, so There was like a sink in the stove area we described, and then behind that is where the fridge was on like the wall behind that.
That makes no sense. I think you're describing it wrong. So the kitchen was a square for when you first walked into the front room. Remember, there's a bathroom on the right side. On the left side is where the stove, sink, and one countertop place was. In the corner far from you, towards the left, is where we put our fridge and one countertop thing there. And the countertop thing left was one straight in front of you. Well, we wanted to stick our dining room table there because that was the only choice. So we ended up sticking in the middle of the wall. Yeah, in the middle of the wall, and you would like run into it because the kitchen was very small. And I get that if you're cooking in there, that's a good place to have it. But like, we wanted to put our table there, and I knew we could do some prep work on our dining room table, which was very small too. It was not
I actually still have that for if we ever needed it again.
Was it like 2 feet by 4 feet?
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's like one of the like smallest like dining room tables you can buy from IKEA. It was like $30 or $40.
It comfortably sits 2. It doesn't sit 4.
Yeah. 4 people could eat off from it. Wouldn't make it your family bed or your family table.
Yeah. And so we moved that countertop to the wall that was the bathroom wall. So when you came in through the front door, there was like that tiny bit of hallway that then went to the very long hallway that went all the way back to the living room. We put it up against the tiny bit of hallway before it turned into the big hallway. And I say big and as in long, because that hallway was actually the tiniest hallway I've ever seen. Very, very small hallway. And that's the other thing is all the doors were, like the doorways were really small and stuff. But anyway, so we put that there, and then we had silver shelves, and we made it work. That were our pantry. We were desperately trying to store kitchen items, and cooking in that kitchen was a disaster. And we'll get back to that. So the other repairs that we did was, at this point we realized that none of the doors closed, and that you couldn't turn, like, you could turn the doorknobs, but they didn't do anything. And the doorknobs were from, like, the 30s. They were...
Well, we took them in the Home Depot because we took them off to try and fix them. And they're like, these are so old, we have nothing that can help you with this unless you want to completely replace them. And honestly, they're probably worth some money. They're so old.
Yeah, so, and they were, that's the other thing is the place, when they turned it over, they didn't really clean the place. They painted everything in white. So they took a roller brush, and it didn't matter, roller brush.
Yeah.
Okay. Dipped it in some white paint.
And just went.
Just your normal eggshell, and just, it didn't matter if it was a door frame, an outlet, they painted. All the outlets were covered in paint, but you could still plug things in the holes, obviously. Light switches, paint. Doorknobs, paint. There was, and they've been doing this for years and years and years, that it was thick.
Yeah, it wasn't like they just did it this time. It's like, no, like this has been done a lot.
And they didn't care, they just painted over it. Everything in that apartment was just painted over with white paint. So the doorknobs were like that. So we got some stuff, some paint remover, cleaned them all up, like basically refurbished them in a way to the old metal that it was, so they looked nice. And also to help it move because it wasn't turning because there was so much paint on it.
Yeah.
Fixed it up to where they would actually open and shut and lock. Oh no, we couldn't lock them because you had to have a key to
like
lock
one of the
them.
old school, you can see all the way through like the keyhole kind of locks. Not like any modern kind of key whatsoever.
And then to lock it, instead of just pushing a button or like turning a little thing, you had to like grab the key, lock it. So we just didn't lock bathrooms, and I think that's what really started us just like leaving the door open to pee in front of each other because it wasn't worth it.
It was such a hassle to just even close the door.
And if I remember correctly, we were so scared of locking it because one time we did, and it was a little difficult to unlock.
Oh, the bathroom one actually literally had a slide lock on it. Like when you go into a stall in like a public bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Like one of the little just like tubes that goes into a hole on the other side. Like that was like the lock. And we added that, I think.
Did we?
Yeah, because I remember putting that on.
Yeah, so we added that. And so we did that. And then, like I said, it was kind of scary to shut those doors because it didn't... I think somebody got accidentally locked in there, didn't they?
Yeah, I almost think that like... We closed the door, it got all the way closed, and then for whatever reason, the handle wasn't unturning the... So, like, the pin was in, like, the door frame, holding the door closed, and then the handle wouldn't turn the right way to, like, make that pin pull back out at that point.
So we just told people not to shut it all the way and then to, like, do the little slide lock. But we didn't have many people over, obviously, who would want a ton of people over at that kind of place. So we fixed those kinds of things. We also added a new deadbolt. We changed the locks, which our landlord wasn't very happy about.
Oh, the deadbolt did not even close. I remember I spent like a couple of hours
the door
re-drilling holes and stuff for the deadbolt.
Well, the door was also not on its hinges properly. So the whole, the door frame wasn't even really straight on, to be honest. But then the door was completely, like, crooked from that. So if you couldn't really shut the door all the way. It shut enough. So you couldn't lock it all the way. And I'm not about to, in this adult club / adult leaf dispensary area,
like the red light district bad part of town,
about to not have a deadlock. So you fixed that problem. You had to rehinge it, or you got it fixed up as best as you could.
Yeah, because by the time I got the door back on straight, the hole for the deadbolt didn't line up anymore, so I had to make the hole basically bigger for the deadbolt to go in.
Yeah. So we did all that. We added a cute little number 2 to the front, because we were apartment 2 to the front. We tried to clean the front door the same way I like wash the walls, which didn't do anything. We cleaned everything out really nice and well. There was also a hole. I don't remember what it was for, but underneath the bay window in the kitchen, which the bay window was between, like, the kitchen sink area and where our fridge was. Basically, if you walked in and turned left, right when you walked in through the front door into the kitchen, there was a huge bay window in there. And underneath that, there was just a giant hole that went all the way to outside. Like, anything that wanted to come in could have just come in through this, I would say,
like, up to very
wide?
large animals.
Or was it, like, 6 inches in diameter? I don't know.
It was, so, like, the tube that your dryer goes out is what it was, like, the size of. The reason was, so the only AC that it had that we ever used was in the window in the living room, which is the furthest room from the front door. So the kitchen was always burning hot. And what we think he did is had another one of the, like, little, like, stand AC units you can get that has to vent out like a window or something. And we think instead of him putting it in the window, he drilled a hole through the side of the building to put the vent out of for another AC unit in the kitchen.
So we shut that off and tried to make it look nice. And, like, we filled in some of the holes from, like, moving the countertop thing. And, like, we tried our hardest to make it look nice and not destroy anything, because we were told very clearly not to put holes in things and mess things up. But we kind of did, realizing that, like, the other guy put in entire bay windows without him even really, like, noticing, it sounded like. Like, how do you get away with, like, you're working on the outside of the building at that point. How do you get away with putting a giant
like,
window?
running around on the roof all day? Because there was roof outside of that, so, like, he wasn't just, like, hanging up in the middle of nowhere. Like, there was roof that he could stand on for any of the windows that had been replaced with bay window.
Yeah.
But, like, still, nobody noticed.
Or told him off. Like, you see somebody starting to work on, like, it's not an easy, quick, pop this out, pop this in project.
Yeah, it's like we ripped an entire window out. Oh, yeah, and then put in a window that sticks out from the building like a foot.
Yeah, so it was odd. So we decided we could do some stuff to it, and we didn't do anything that was bad, but we, like, did change stuff up. And then we also repaired, there was that door in the bedroom. So the bedroom had the closet door, and then, like, right next to that, there was a door that was painted. It had a board on the bottom that was secured, like, nailed shut, and then it was sealed with all the paint that they've just been painting over and over and over and over again.
Somebody had taken, like, painter's tape and, like, put it over the like, cracks around the outside. So it was, like, literally painted shut because the tape was over that, and then it was painted over the top of the tape.
Yeah, so then we decided to open that up and remove the door and put the door as, like, a little decoration somewhere. I was trying to be all Pinteresty.
We had to do that because we couldn't get the bed into the bedroom. The hallway was so short that our queen-size bed could not make the turn around the corner to go into the hallway and then into the bedroom door. So
we had to bring it into the big living room to where it could easily turn basically straight on and go straight into the door. So we had to remove this door, which was very difficult because there was so much paint caked onto it. And I will admit that it's a stupid door to have from the bedroom to the living room because it takes, like, all of 2 seconds to walk around that wall anyways.
You're saving yourself, like, 10 feet of walking.
Yeah, so we didn't use it for anything. So we pulled the door off. I made it, like, a cute little decoration in the kitchen. I put, like, a calendar on it and, like, a little clock with, like, little adhesive stuff. I didn't destroy it.
Well, we also left it off to help with ventilation.
Yeah,
because,
I was going to say that.
Yeah, all the AC and the heat was all in the living room. So we left that off to try and help airflow.
Because the airflow in there was the worst I've ever seen.
We had, like, 3, 4. How many fans did we have? We had like 3 or 4 fans, like full blown like box fans, and then ones in the rooms and stuff going. And our airflow was still awful.
We'd open all the windows. We tried everything to get any airflow. And
like cross ventilation did not
happen.
Work there.
Didn't happen. And so it was always like the living room when like in the winter would be boiling hot, but the kitchen would be freezing. And then like in the summer, again, the kitchen would be boiling hot and the living room would be okay. Because we didn't feel comfortable running it very cold because he'd warned us that we'd get supercharged if all of a sudden the electricity bill went up. He would assume it was from us. So we were kind of like, oh, I don't want to do that. And then in the end, we never saw a bigger bill for that. We always paid $7.75 every month, right?
Yeah.
$7.75 every month and never got charged more. But we were so scared we didn't feel comfortable like turning it lower or having good AC, so we were hot a lot.
Well, and the thing that's ridiculous now, having a different perspective of, okay, we live in a different apartment now. We have our own meter. We get our own electric bill. In the summer, running the AC, our electric bill is like $75. Like what we paid for all of the utilities there. But us not knowing that, now we look at that and we're like, how much more would he really have charged us if our entire electric bill is only $75 and we're, sitting there uncomfortable because we didn't want to run our AC more?
Yeah. So I think that's it for like what we had actually changed once we got in there. And we installed fire alarms. There were no fire alarms.
Or CO2 detectors.
So we installed that and billed him because he said, if you guys, and that's the other thing, he told us not to change anything, but if we did anything to the apartment that needed to be done because he knew it was in bad shape, that just to bill it to him. So for that, we did send it to him, and we sent him like the deadbolt, I think, bill, because we had to put a new deadbolt in because it didn't work.
He basically said, leave it out of your rent and then give me the receipt for whatever you did with your rent, because we always paid him cash for rent, so we just literally paid him less rent. And
he always asked, he's like, if you guys got like dollar bills or anything, like singles, always pay rent in that first because it helps out.
Because I waited tables. So he's like, hey, you don't need to switch up to all the big bills. You can just give me the little ones for rent because I'm always having to go to the bank for that. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so paying rent was like a thick envelope of like as many ones because you wanted to give him a lot.
Yeah, and it was only, like $775 every month, and it looked like way more money than that.
Yeah. And I felt bad the bartenders, when you went to go pay rent, had to count it all out.
And write 51s or whatever on a little sheet saying like what we had given them. That was also weird. We didn't pay rent directly to the landlord. We dropped it off with the bartender in the bar and got a note from them saying that we'd paid rent.
It'd be like, didn't it say stuff like Scotty, $7.75, the date?
Yeah.
And it was and we had a bunch of those in our car. I remember moving.
I probably still could find a couple of those in my car.
Because we wanted to keep all of them in case one of the bartenders came back and was like, I didn't give that to them. No, they didn't pay rent. But because it never was a problem.
So easy for them to pocket the cash and say, no, they didn't pay rent. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but they were all trustworthy, surprising. I shouldn't say surprisingly, but they were all trustworthy. We never had an issue with that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a problem.
But yeah, so after moving in and getting through the big stuff, and I would say we honestly made it better. There were things that were never cleaned in that place I cleaned.
We absolutely left that in better condition than when we moved into it in.
And we made it look nice. Like, I had actually tried really hard to make a lot of things look nice and
we definitely had people come over and be like, I see what you're working with, and I'm really impressed with, what you've done with it.
Yeah. The only other big thing was the kitchen. Cooking in that kitchen was a nightmare, and there was no dishwasher. We ended up buying one of those very small, are they called portable dishwashers?
Yeah, they sit on your countertop and hook right up to your sink.
And they're meant, I think, for if you had a bar downstairs in your house and you didn't want to run up bar dishes or something, you could clean dishes down there. It was not meant to clean, all your dishes for everything, but doing the dishes in that place was near impossible. And we were both working and going to school like crazy, so we had to come home, eat, and cook food that took twice as long to cook in this kitchen because you couldn't
no counter space.
Do anything.
Yeah.
So, prepping a big meal, everything was covered, and it was just, it was the most annoying thing. And then, we would try to do big meals. So if I made something, I'd made 6 to 8 portions so that we would have it for a couple days afterwards. And, dishes piled up really quick because we were constantly in and out and stuff like that. And then it was just too hard to clean in the sinks too, because like one side of the sink was really deep and big, and the other side of the sink was like
tiny,
super tiny. So it's really hard to like do dishes, and there wasn't enough spots to put dishes once you were done with them cleaned.
Yeah, because you didn't have a dishwasher, so there's obviously no dry cycle. Your dry cycle is put them in a big pile and wait for them to dry.
Yeah. So we eventually got this little dishwasher. It was, I would say, a saint when we actually were using it and caught up on it, but now reflecting, I hate that little thing.
I mean, now that we have an actual dishwasher, yes, that thing is not very useful. It is definitely meant for, like, put some, like, bar glasses in it and run it and forget about it. But when it was run, 4 loads of dishes a day or wash them all by hand, like, definitely it served its purpose at the time.
Yeah, and so that's what life for us looked like. I mean, it was really hard in the kitchen. The place cracked, and you were going to mention that the kitchen tiles. He didn't lay them. The last guy before us who redid the kitchen and bathroom. The bathroom was fine for some reason, but
I don't know if it was just because it's bigger tiles in the bathroom, or I don't know.
Yeah, but like they weren't super straight, but like they were all nicely done to where when you stepped on them, they didn't crack. But the kitchen ones were so uneven. Like he didn't properly put the grout down to where it would even everything out, or put
the floor
wood
was
down
not
or something.
level, like at all.
So if you stepped on a tile awkwardly, like you stepped on one corner and then another corner just naturally walking, it would snap in half. And so we constantly had these little pieces of tile and grout pulling up and getting kicked around, and then we eventually got 2 cats, even though the landlord didn't say we could necessarily have 2 cats. We got 2 cats.
We didn't necessarily get told
we asked
no,
if we could get a dog,
we didn't
and he
necessarily
said,
get told yes either.
We asked if we could get a dog, and he said no because there was no grass, and he would feel bad for the dog. So we got
and insurance instead, because he had a bar, and if it got out
and bit somebody.
Yeah.
So we got 2 cats instead, and the guy next to us
had at least one cat.
A cat too, so we didn't think much of it. So our cats would flick or play around and like chase tile and grout pieces. Yeah. And it was just a disaster, and trying to mop in there was disgusting, and like you would be mopping and all of a sudden you'd get like a whole piece of tile up by accident, and like...
And you'd spend forever cleaning, and then you'd look at it and nothing ever was like really felt that clean even after you spent time cleaning it.
Yeah, and it was a bad spot. And then, the music was always loud, and I feel like the music after we moved in just didn't really turn off ever. Like it did turn off at like... 2, 3 a.m., but then it came on at like 10 a.m. because then the morning staff got in to like, I'm guessing, clean and stock the bar for the rest of the bar was open pretty early anyways.
Oh, and they'd have people in there. Like there's sometimes we go down there at 9, 10 in the morning to pay rent, and there's already people in there that are just absolutely sloshed for the day.
And they were always in there. They were like, they're just normal, they were bar flies. Mm-hmm. And so, at 10 a.m., they'd start playing the music again. So it just kind of felt, when you're going to sleep around midnight and waking up at like 8 a.m., you just felt like and going to class right away and then coming back and music was on again. It just felt like music never ended. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like it got louder and louder and louder as we started living, like the longer we lived there.
Yeah, like the first couple of months, it definitely was like on at night, off during the day. And then like definitely by the time we moved out, the later months, yeah, it was exactly that, where it just felt like it was on all the time and it just never turned off.
Yeah, and so other things about that was fun is, like, we would hear, sometimes we'd be, like, heading to bed, and we'd just hear people scream fighting outside, getting into fights, I'm just sure like drunken yelling. Fights.
Yeah.
Just screaming at each other, and you'd hear, like, people hitting each other and stuff like that, so that was fun. You'd hear, like, I remember one time, we all were running over to the window to go look, and it was some girl who caught her husband there at the adult club, and was, like, screaming at him and beating him with his purse, and we thought it was hilarious. But in hindsight, like, super sketch, and, like, shouldn't have been there.
And then, for whatever reason, the road right out front, people love to show off their Harleys on at, like, 2, 3 in the morning. They would love to just... There's, like, a stoplight out there, and it would turn green, and you'd hear them just crank it up as loud as it would go, and it sounded like they were, like, sitting in our living room.
It was so loud. And it just... And then it'd be, like... And it'd take, like, Take, like... 3 minutes before we would not hear it anymore.
Yeah.
And then it's like they did a U-turn and then they come right back. So it was just them doing laps on that one road because it was a higher speed limit, sure, but they were definitely going higher than that. And it was just...
like 45.
And they just kept, 45 compared to the area, which is, it's around 25 to 35 everywhere else. So it was like the higher speed limit. And they just would get on it and boom, and then you might have silence for like 1 minute and then come back. And it was just like the loudest thing. And then all the time we would see police outside. So our whole because we didn't have the best blinds and stuff because they weren't provided, and the bay windows you can't really put blinds on, and we tried to put curtains on them, but they weren't like the greatest because curtains are expensive. Newsflash. And, you know, we didn't really spend money on them much, and we were already trying to spend money on like AC and getting other things set up. So we didn't have like the best, you know, blockage, and so our whole house would just, or the whole apartment would just get lit up red and blue and
just
stuff.
Flashing, blinking lights.
And then, I remember the thing that pissed you off. There was a point where the Chromecast, we had Chromecast, and that was our main entertainment. We would watch YouTube and Netflix and Hulu off of it, and we would, like, borrow our families'
I know where you're going
passwords. And there was a while where the Chromecast, if you were on the internet at all...
Like, on the Wi-Fi network, because we couldn't get our own internet hooked up is the reason for this. I called all of the local providers, and we weren't technically registered as, like, a separate...
Like housing.
Thing. Like, so we basically had to share the internet that was at the bar. Or
pay for a business internet, which was like
really
crazy expensive for internet. It wasn't like $200 to $300 or more. Depending.
Yeah, like their minimum was like ridiculous.
But then they wouldn't even sell that to us because then it was like, but you guys already are registered
because there's
as
already
a business
internet at that location. So
we couldn't get Wi-Fi, which was, I guess, kind of okay because then we ended up like, we didn't have to pay for it because we used the bar and adult clubs. The bar and the adult club is the same thing if I'm making it confusing. This is all the same, like, owner and it's all connected
building
and stuff.
And, yeah.
Yeah. And the bar and adult club obviously are very connected. They're all on this bottom floor.
Mm.
And so we use that internet, and at the time, the Chromecast, if you were on the Wi-Fi at all, you would get the little notification on your phone that something was playing. So people would see it, and at the time, if you swiped it off your phone, like as a notification, swiped it away because you didn't want to see it, it would turn off the Chromecast.
Or if you hit the little X to get it to, like, go away. Which, you know, most people see an X on something, they hit it, and they're like, yeah, okay, go away.
Yeah, and you don't know what it is. Yeah, it stopped playing. So we'd be trying to, like, enjoy, you know, watching, like, Lucifer on Hulu, or whatever we were watching back then. I know, or, like, Rick and Morty, I know we were watching that a lot back then. Or something, and it would get turned off, like, every 5 seconds. And then, like, you know, we would have a time where we would finally win the fight. So we'd, like, turn it on, somebody would finally notice it on their phone because the bar was getting busy. They'd flick it away or whatever, and then we would lose connection. We'd turn it back on. They would flick it off. We'd turn it back on. They would flick it off. We'd turn it back on. We'd flick it off. And then finally we'd win. Because it's like, I'm watching something. I have nothing to do. Your music's loud. I would like to go to bed at some point. I need to, like, chill out. I'm going to watch something. And then we started naming the Chromecast so you would see it. Please don't turn this off. Do not turn this off. Like, so people would see it. It didn't help. But I think some people who were regulars finally, like, decided not to do it because it was just something that would never go away, and realizing that it only happened there. But, like, I remember I wrote so many things on the Chromecast, like, when it would fail, and you could, like, send info, like, a complaint or whatever, I would write, like, please stop having the Wi-Fi, whatever. Like, if somebody's on your Wi-Fi that they can just turn off, please get rid of it. I don't know, did they ever...
No, it still pops up. That's still a thing. Like, every time you start playing something here, it pops up on my phone that someone's playing.
So, you know, you couldn't get rid of it. So we had to deal with that. And again, then we couldn't get our own Wi-Fi. So that just pissed us off. That was like just another thing that we couldn't get cable because the way that, like, everything was set up, and, like, we couldn't even, I don't even know if we could actually hook up a phone, those are things that you're required by law to have in every house, right? Residential area.
I looked into that. It kind of depends on state. What have to provide.
Okay.
And I don't remember specifically what it was for our state. I know that in California, for sure, made it very clear that would not have worked. But for here, it was a little bit more...
But anyway, so that was our entertainment. That was all we had. So it was really frustrating. And I guess we could have put it on, like, a laptop and watched it.
Yeah. Well, what I eventually did was you can set up your computer to so it can take the internet connection it has, and then it can make a smaller network. At least what my desktop could do this. It could make a smaller network that used your internet connection to make, like, your own private network. So we did that eventually, and that kind of helped.
You put a password on it.
Yeah, solve that issue because it was our own, like, Wi-Fi. And it wasn't very good. It wasn't very fast because obviously you're splitting up one connection to a bunch of different things. But, like, at least we weren't getting our Chromecast turned off all the time.
Yeah. And then I remember that, and obviously... It was the sketchiest place in town, so we would always be seeing, like, somebody pull up quickly, two cars pull up, somebody quickly jumps out of their car, hands somebody something else and takes a wad of cash and then jumps back in their car and leave. So it was always kind of scary leaving the house because I never knew if, like, one of those things were going to be going on and then somebody was going to threaten you because you saw, you know, that deal happen.
Mm.
And it just, like, it was kind of freaky. And then I remember, like, this one jerk face in this stupid, old, battered red truck would park in front of our stairs. And the creaky old stairs that went to our apartment came out quite a bit compared to the parking spaces around it. So when you have a big, battered old truck, he had to pull up, like, as close to the stairs to where you almost had to, like, slide up on his roof to get to the stairs. And we would call the police, and they'd be like, well, we don't have any jurisdiction there, or we can't do anything.
Because it's private property, we can't come do anything.
And we'd call, even though I'm pretty sure that's a fire hazard, but they didn't care. There's only 3 people in that house anyway, so whatever. And you guys live there, so you have to be bad people because you live in the bad part of town. They just didn't care. And we'd try to call tow companies, they weren't going to come out. So we just had to deal with this guy being parked in front of the stairs, and it just pissed me off. And then, like, people would steal our spots all the time later in the night, so, like, we would try to make it happen to where we weren't out past, like, 8 or 9, because if we were, we couldn't park to go into our apartment anywhere. Like, all the parking, like, because you can imagine if it's hot and popping on a Friday night, people are going to park anywhere they can, to the point where some people would even trap other people in because they wanted so bad to park and be in there. And there was more spots after in between the club and the dispensary. There was, like, the dirt parking lot, and then it wrapped around the back of the club, and people would park all in there like crazy. And then there was a weird taco truck that was always there, like, really late into the night, and it was sketch, and, like, never ate there.
Yeah, no.
But it was just, like, super sketch, and just so frustrating, the parking situation. Like, I'm paying to live here. Like, we should have had spots that said, and that's the thing, is we did have signs that said residents only. It was one sign, though, for the 4 spots that we had for the 4
and nobody cared.
And that's the thing. Earl told us that we each had 4 spots up against this wall that had that one sign that said resident parking only for the 4 different apartment structures. And so we each got one of them, and then after that, like, you could park anywhere you wanted, but it wasn't signed. But it didn't matter. People parked there anyways, if they could. So we were always desperately trying to do that. And then, like, there came a point where sometimes we would double park in one spot if they were 2 smaller cars. Like, I know the guy that lived next to us, and our car fit really nicely together in one spot. So we would always do that because it became to the point where it was, like, so frustrating to park anywhere, and just, it was just such...
Well, and then on top of that, sometimes during the day, we'd have the people from the dispensary come out and yell at us for parking on the side of their building.
Yeah, and then they try to act like they own that part, which I'm sure they did because it was up against their building, but it's like, I'm sorry. Like, oh yeah, that's what caused the big issues. They threatened that you can't park here, and if you park here, we're going to have you towed. What? Like, you guys have a bunch of parking spaces out front, and it's not like you guys are popping all the time. Like, you guys are pretty slow, easy going compared to the place next door that's literally popping all the time. And that place in there, if you ever went, it's just like a very small room and all very sealed off because obviously I'm sure they can get burglarized very easily. So, like, it was in very small, so they weren't going to have 20 people standing in that little tiny waiting area where you were waiting to get your stuff.
Like,
your
max,
leaves.
you could maybe have 10, 12 people in there.
Really? Oh, that's max. And so, like, you don't need all those parking spaces. And that never happened anyways. So whatever. And then I remember we were always speculating about that SUV that would always pull up behind.
Very, very nice, fully decked out, and brand new, shiny, polished Escalade would come back to, like, already this very sketch part of town, back to where there's these big garage doors out, like, very hidden from everything back behind the dispensary.
And would just sit there, get out, and go do something. And we didn't know what was back there. And we always speculated, like, oh, I wonder if they're, if they work with the dispensary and are dropping stuff off or picking up stuff or doing work or what. But they would always...
Or someone's getting, interrogated back there. And
a mob.
We don't know.
Yeah, and we always speculated and thought it was the weirdest thing. And anytime I see them out there, I always peek to see, like, what it is. What are you guys doing? And, like, never found out. It was just weird. The whole place was just sketch. Was this the same guy that just... do you remember that guy that came in and just, like, started turning the doorknob?
Yeah, I can't
Who was that?
Yeah.
No, it was the guy that was going to install the heater, right?
That was it, yep.
Yeah, we had a guy that was going to install the heater, and he like knocked on our door, didn't even wait for us to respond, and just started opening our door, but it was locked, obviously. I was like, what? And we're just sitting at our table having dinner, which is right in front of the door. Like, you walk in, you see that table.
He waited, like, half a second to try the door.
Yeah, just started opening the door, and we opened it, and he was all, like, surprised. I was like, really, dude? Like, of course we live here. You're bringing a heater in. Somebody's gonna live here. And then installed the heater. Oh, my God. Do you remember? He, like... you tell that story.
So, we let him do his thing. He was in there for forever. And this heater, to give you an idea, I could probably pull anybody, literally anybody, probably a 12-year-old kid off the street and have them hook up this heater. You literally screw on the natural gas and plug it in. That's it. That's all there is to it.
I remember we had plans that day, but we felt so weird that he just, like, opened the door right away and, like,
yeah, we didn't want to just leave him there.
We didn't want to leave him there, so we canceled our plans because he was taking so long. And he was smoked while he was there. Do you remember that?
Yeah. In our house, just smoking.
Didn't ask us.
Yeah, nothing. Did not care.
Oh, really? You finish the story.
So, he takes forever. He's like, I need to leave and come back, and I can't get it lit. You literally held a lighter in this hole and pushed a little button, and that was it. And it lit right up.
No, but it didn't work, remember? Because he wired it all wrong.
Yeah, so
he eventually leaves because he gives up for the day. Says he'll be back tomorrow. We never heard from him again.
Never.
Ever.
And the thing is, we started feeling funny. A little tired, a little sleepy. We started getting, slight headaches.
So then we were
Remember, this thing runs off from natural gas and is piped straight in.
Okay, so then we were like, we were getting sleepy and tired, and so we decided that we should go lay down. Because we were getting a headache and we were getting tired. And so we were, like, laying down, kind of relaxing. I'm, like, about ready to fall asleep. And I remember my eyes just got super wide. And I told Derek, I was like, get up right now. He was like, what? And I was like, no. We need to get out of the house right now. And he was like, you were like, why? And I was like, I think it's gas poisoning. Like, we need to get out right now.
And we had the cats, so we opened, like, all the windows, and then we went and sat out on the porch.
And then, no, we put him in a carrier and put him out in the hallway.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And
opened all the doors and windows and aired it out. And then you went in and fixed the problem.
After it had aired out for a while.
Yeah, you went in and turned it off. So, like, we could have died.
Yeah, the gas was just wide open and, like, not properly... They painted over everything with white paint. And this guy didn't take the time to clean off the white paint from the metal before he screwed the gas onto there. So it was just leaking right out. I went back there and, like, heard a...
But no, he also left the gas on, and then there was no pilot light or anything on. That was the other problem.
Like,
and
there was
that worked is
nothing
you had
to
have
deal
something.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah, so there had to be, like, the pilot light on to deal with it. So either way, like, yeah, so just leaking.
It wasn't sealed in multiple spots.
And I think, and like again, we could have died.
We could have very easily gone to sleep and died from this.
And
guy.
I just can't believe, and like, you were so thankful that I just all of a sudden was like, no, wait, this feels wrong. And I don't know what it was, but we were just, like, laying down about to fall asleep, and I shot out of bed, and I was like, nope, we need to wake up right now. Everybody, get everything out. And you didn't understand why I was so frantic until I explained it to you. I was like, I think, was it carbon monoxide? Is that what natural gas poisoning is?
I think so.
And so I was just like, we need to get out now. And I'm so thankful that we did, but, like, we could have died, and then the guy never even came back.
Yeah, so I went in there. This guy, literally, he didn't even have to mess with these wires. These wires came wired correctly from the store. You literally just had to plug this thing into a wall outlet, and he managed to mess it up. So after a couple hours of me looking at this weird wiring diagram and messing with stuff, he literally, like, rewired it completely backwards of what it was supposed to be. So I get all the wires hooked back up the correct way and how they're all supposed to be. Fires right on. Nothing, like, no problem. Like, after the wires are hooked up right, running in, like, less than 5 minutes.
And it didn't take you long at all to get that done. Like you said, like 5 minutes for the whole project, probably. 10 minutes. Like, it didn't take you long at all. And I just couldn't believe that this guy
spent hours.
And then we told Earl that he, like, never came back and gave him, like, the leftover, like, the manual and, like, leftover supplies for it so he could keep it down in the bar and stuff like that, but just,
But I mean, hey, after that, anytime we ever had any issue with it or the pilot light went out, I mean, I knew exactly what to do with it, right?
Yeah, and that thing burned so hot.
That thing was, again, awful awful circulation in that place. But that thing, if you could get the air circulated around, made well enough heat for the whole place.
Yeah, that's probably
it was
too
way
much.
overkill.
So anyways, what I was going to say before that is we were planning on, it was April, or it was March, and somebody came and knocked on our door, and nobody was with him. And he said, "Oh, I'm looking to buy the place. Do you mind if I look around?" And I remember being like, "I'm sorry, no."
I think you were there by yourself, because I don't think I was there for that.
Yeah, and I was like, no, I'm sorry. Like, I'm here by myself. I'm not about to let you into my house. And I had just cracked the door open because I was already very scared of this guy. And the thing is, I looked through the peephole and I saw that he was, like, all dressed up nice. So I wasn't, like, I don't know. I had conflicting... Was he dressed up nice because he dealed inappropriate or adult items, or because he was a business person? And why are you a business person in this part of town? Like, what? So I was conflicted. Yeah, I was conflicted opening the door. Because, like, oh, you're dressed nice. You should be nice. But then I was like, wait, why are you dressed nice here? Like, what are you doing? So I remember that I just barely cracked the door and peeked out. And he was all like, oh, hey, I'm looking to buy the place. I talked to Earl. He said I could stop by and look into the rooms. Do you mind? And I was like, I'm sorry, no. And he was like, oh, well, why not? And I was like, well... And he was like, but Earl said I could do it. And I was like, yeah, well, we weren't given 24-hour notice, and that's a Colorado law. And as soon as I started bringing up the law, the guy kind of, like, quickly brushed me off and was, like, ready to leave. But I just, like, couldn't believe that. So after hearing that, we immediately started getting concerned, because if the place is going to get sold, how's our lease going to look? You know, Earl's pretty chill, we felt like, and we kind of saw this as an opportunity to finally get out. And it kind of was like, you know what, why don't we just leave? And I remember we went around and started looking at apartments, knew a better idea of what we needed. Like, a dishwasher was a must, a nice kitchen was a must.
Washer, dryer, hookups.
AC.
We were done with the laundromats.
Oh, my God. And the laundromat near our house, was all of them, really, were just so dirty and gross and sketch.
You'd get your... You'd get your clothes home, and you're like, I know I just cleaned these, but, like, everything was so gross, and transporting them back and forth, like, I don't feel super, like, confident in them.
Yeah, and so, you know, we found out what we, like, had to absolutely have in an apartment, and basically what price range we could afford, and stuff like that. So we ended up being in the apartment that we are in now, and we love it. And it's just, like, anytime I start to feel like maybe this place is too small or not good enough, I immediately remember that place. And I'm just so thankful that we're here.
Mm-hmm. Like, you don't realize how much you appreciate those little things, like, you know, flooring that, you know, doesn't fall apart, and, like, you know, actually having a dishwasher, and actually having, like, temperature control that works, and... feeling safe going to and from your house.
We actually had, like, a ton more stories about people, like, coming up to us while we were in the parking lot, just asking us. I remember we had that one guy that just came up and was like, hey, do you guys live around here? And I was like, no. Oh.
People that tried to use our bathroom, like, do you live up there? Can we use your bathroom?
No, you were doing something, like, in the hallway or on the stairs or, like, the roof area that's by that bay window or something. I think you were fixing one of the bay windows because, like, a screen was out. And you were putting the screen back in so we could actually open the windows and maybe get some airflow. Which didn't really matter because the bay windows, it was just like the two little side windows that helped stick it out a foot. So just these little tiny foot windows were all that opened up, obviously. So it, like, wasn't like enough for airflow. 6 inches
by, like, a foot was, like, the size of the window.
And you were out there putting that on. And this lady just drives up in her car and she's like, do you live here? And you were like, yeah. And she's like, can I use your bathroom? And you were like, no. Really? Didn't she argue with you for a little bit on it?
Yeah, like, trying to convince me that she needed to come into my apartment and use my bathroom. And I remember I just walked back there. There was an outside door that led into everything. I just walked inside there and bolted the deadlock and waited for her to drive away before I went back outside.
Yeah, it was like stairs, the door, and then a hallway that obviously, like, had our apartment and the person next to us. So that doorway we just locked and then also went into our apartment and locked it. But I just couldn't believe that she was arguing with you. And I'm like, I don't know you. This is a sketch part of town. And like, no, you're not using my bathroom. Go find something else. There's, like, a McDonald's down the street. Go
there's
there.
Like, literally a Subway a block away.
Like, what is your problem? And so many things. And I remembered while we were talking about the heater guy coming in. Do you remember the guy that had worked on our apartment? Like, he was doing some of the painting and stuff and supposedly doing all this like work, which I don't know what he did, but whatever. And he was living there, basically, because he had been living there until, basically, Earl told him he could live there until it got sold, rent-free. And that basically Earl had kind of told us without us asking that he would never sell to that guy because he is was he a bouncer downstairs?
Yeah, and didn't have the means to afford the place.
Basically,
I think this
Earl
is a nice way of putting it.
Earl knew his paycheck. Like, you're not gonna know. And so he was staying there for which is fine. We didn't not own.
It wasn't ours yet.
Yeah. But I remember there were cigarettes everywhere after he left and just ash everywhere. I just don't get what
He used the shower without a shower curtain. And then, like, didn't clean the bottom when he was done. And he was a very dirty guy, especially after, like, working in, you know, that nasty place that we hadn't come through and, like, cleaned yet and stuff.
Yeah. And then I remember, didn't Earl say that we could pretty much, like, come in and move in at any point? So did we move in a couple days early? Because he told us we could.
Yeah.
And so we told him, like, hey, we're going to move in a couple of days early. And I guess this guy was upset because he was counting on those extra couple days to live there, which I kind of felt bad about. But, like, I don't know. We're paying for it. And then I remember we found so many things from the last guy that did all the repairs, or I get improvements with air quotes.
We've done a couple of those where we tried to inflect it with our voice, but we're, like, physically sitting here doing air quotes on things.
And we found, like, a pack of cigarettes, a weird journal that had weird stuff in it, and, like, a weird pen. It was just, he left behind some weird stuff, and I guess the guy had died. I don't know if in the apartment or what.
They assured us that not in the apartment, but, you know, with a lot of the other stuff that they told us that turned out to be a little less than true, who knows, honestly?
Yeah. And it was just sketch. We had people, like, all the time trying to get in, and, like, people from the bar downstairs who were drunk staggering up the stairs and, like, wandering through the hallway. Like, and you worked nights as a server, and I didn't work as many nights as you did. Like, I had more nights off than you did by myself. And I also, at one point, had changed jobs during our stay there, so I had, like, a month or two off where I wasn't doing much. So I was there at nights by myself, and it just scared the crap out of me.
Well, and I really did not like the nights that you would go to work and then you would have to come home by yourself. Like, I definitely remember that back then there was a lot more times that you would get off from work and come wait for me to get off from work.
Yeah, and or vice versa. You would get off work because you were not working the late shifts.
And I would go wait for you.
Because you weren't, like, the big dog. At that point, you were still working, like, the short, small serving shifts.
By, like,
so
7,
you would come, wait for me, and then we'd go figure out food or whatever, whether it was going to be at home or we were going to grab something, and then we'd head home together because you were so scared of me, like, getting out of the car at that time of night.
Didn't people, like, literally... Like, there was a couple times where people were, like, following you weird and, like, trying to get your attention and stuff,
There was one time where, like, I parked, and right when I parked, this guy opens his door and starts walking towards his car. I was like, nope. I mean, maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was just getting out to go to the bar. But I had parked, sat there for a second, was texting you that I got home safe, which, whoops. Should have waited till I got an apartment. And then he had been sitting there as long as I had been there, and he basically got out of his car and was making a beeline for my car. So I just reversed and boom, took off and waited. I think I went to your work and just ate some fries and waited till you were done because I was scared. And then, like, there was another time where I had, like, gotten out of the car and this guy was like, hey, miss, hey, miss, I got a question for you. Hey, miss. And the whole time he was doing that, I, like, running up the stairs, turned around, slammed the door and locked it. The outside door.
You're driving around the back, you're a girl getting out of a car at a place like this. It's like, I can only assume what they thought you were.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. If I was wearing my work clothes, they were not flattering.
But, I mean, still, people went there for that kind of a thing. So, you know, they're in that kind of a mindset.
Yeah, and it was just scary. And, like, there were, like you were saying, a lot of times that I waited for you to get home or tried to adjust my work schedule to where I wasn't going to be home so late. But then that was the other thing is, the person that came off after me sometimes was late, or we have big issues to deal with by the time they got there because it was, like, the later shift at the hotel, so things got, like, crazier. So then, like, I ended up staying way later than I wanted to, and just, it was a place. But anyway, so we heard about the guy selling, or wanting to buy, and we took advantage of the 30-day clause that was in our lease agreement, and Earl wasn't happy about that.
No, not at all.
He called us several times.
Yeah. Very upset.
And he basically stated, well, you guys signed that. You expect to stay for a year. Well, it said month-to-month lease on the top. Yeah, you might have put in a year, but you also had a clause in there that said 30 days, exit at any time.
It's like, we're paying you for the 30 days. We gave you our notice. Like, take us to court at this point. We've followed everything that's in the contract, and you're going to lose.
So... And then I remember, like, they wanted to show people the place right away, and we weren't even, like, we were in the middle of moving, and so we just we were planning on staying there a little bit longer, but then he, like, wanted to show people, like, back to back to back, where it was like,
we can't just, like, leave for an entire day. Like, that's no.
Yeah, and then, like, it was just awkward, so we ended up just, like, completely moving and getting into this place that we're in now as quick as we could, and just left and basically paid rent at 2 places for, for 15 or plus days.
Something like that.
For a couple weeks.
Very big overlap.
Yeah,
sure.
Because we just wanted to get out of there, and then they showed the place off, and they sold it before our lease was even up. I remember that. Because we drove by to pick up our deposit a couple days before the lease was even up, and somebody was already in there with curtains up. And I remember they were, like, super hippie curtains, and I was like, oh, you'll fit right in. You'll like it, probably. And I remember just Earl was so upset because he was like, I've had people live with me for years and years and years, and you guys are just leaving after only a couple months, like, and it wasn't. It was almost 6 months. More, it was almost, like, 9 months.
Yeah, it was 8, 9, something like that.
And so,
I mean, we could figure it out, but somewhere around there.
And then, ended up giving the apartment away to somebody else before our lease was technically up. Like, yeah, all of our stuff was gone, but we technically still legally own that place.
Yeah, like, that was ours still.
So, and I remember Earl would call us all the time to come in for something with no warning, which is also legal in Colorado. You need 24-hour notice. And just, it was, I'm so happy we're out of that place.
Unless it's, like, on fire or, like, flooding or something like that. Like, very, like, obvious emergency situations. Like, it's like, no, you need to call ahead. Not like, hey, I'm going to be there in 20 minutes. Like, no.
And he would just tell us and show up. And it was just, nah. And I remember I had a couple school project where people had to come over to my place because it was closer, or they didn't really have anything but a small dorm. So hearing that I had an apartment, they'd be like, let's go to your place. And I'd be like, oh, okay. Like, they'd come over and I'd be like, I'm sorry. This place sucks, but...
Should have gone to Starbucks or something.
Yeah, right? I don't know why we didn't think about that. Well, it'd be like we had to do presentations. So we had to talk and give speeches. You're not going to do that in the middle of a Starbucks. Collaborating on something, totally go to the library, but, like, giving whole speeches wasn't really doable. But, aren't you so happy to be out of that place?
And it's just, I couldn't believe the little things. Like, our first night in our current place, we both were laying there and we both, like, kind of looked around. Like, I definitely remember turning to you being like, this is weird, huh? And you're like, what do you mean? I was like, it is so quiet.
Because, so quiet.
Like, if we don't say anything, we're not talking, it is, like, dead silent here.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed that encounter more than we did. I mean, it's a funny story now that we tell people. Like, it's kind of like a fun story. Like, yeah, I used to live above an adult club and next to a dispensary.
The looks people give you is hilarious.
Thank you so much for listening, and we really appreciate all the support from you guys, and we'll see you guys next time.